Hello Linux lovers, my name's Wimpy, welcome to my world. Today we're going to be taking another look at Retro Home. Good morning Paul, how are you doing? And what we're going to be doing is actually releasing new builds of Retro Home that people can download and actually use on their Raspberry Pis. We're going to publish some generic images for just, you've got a Raspberry Pi, and we're going to publish some images specifically for particular cases. And on the topic of cases, there is a selection of cases upon my desk that I've been working with, and I'm going to go over some of these. In fact, I'm going to talk about each of them. I'm going to talk about which ones are good, which are not so good, and which are just plain awful. In terms of, us as users of these, consumers of these cases, and also from my perspective as a developer who's trying to make devices for these cases that are sort of reproducible, reusable commodities. So good morning Paul, good morning King Egypt, thanks very much for stopping by. I'm glad you like the music there, so let me just bring up the message. So King Egypt says you like the pre-show music. Sounds as though you're ready to get down to business. Yeah, these are some hype tracks made by 100 Thieves. So yeah, they're quite good, aren't they? So yeah, we are going to get down to business. We're going to get stuff done today. Hello Marius. How on earth are you? Ubuntu Mate on the Steam Deck when? So this is a question from Marius. Well, I still haven't received my email from Valve in order to come and buy one of these things yet. I was a first day requester, but it was like right at the end of that first day, so I think I won't get my invitation email for at least a month from now, I think, looking at the current trajectory. I'm not going to make an Ubuntu Mate spin for it. That seems counterintuitive. At least that's not my plan at the moment. In another window here, so Marius has got his a few weeks ago, and I'm impressed with its performance. Okay, excellent. Yeah, the thing about the Steam Deck is it's a games console, right? So I'm glad that you're impressed with it. I've certainly seen, sort of generally positive reviews about that device. It's a games console, and I think I intend to use it as such. It's not going to be a tinker toy for me, that particular device. I say that now. I mean, I will have to resist the urge, I think. But yeah, I will just use it as a device. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to the stream, Padza. Thanks very much for stopping by. So let's just get back to this view here. So these are the cases that I've been working with most. There are others, but these are the ones I've been working with most. And I think a lot of these are very familiar to a lot of people, not just what they're modelled after, but also, their popularity. Some not so well known, but I'll cover them. This one, for example, maybe not so well known. I really want to love this, and there's lots to love about this one, and I'll get to that a bit later. So we're going to cover these off, but what we've got running over here, I'll just see if this particular build is finished yet. No, it's still going. So we've got some builds running of Retro Home for some of these cases, and some generic images as well. And I think this is a generic Raspberry Pi images. Here we go. It's just doing the compression stage. So this is about to finish. So once this one's finished, I'll kill this terminal, open up another terminal, and get another build running of this with the desktop edition included. Hey, Tommy, good morning. How you doing? King Egypt, have you got one as well? You're saying about how well made it is. Are you? I had to delay by a few hours, and you'll be weeks behind the trend by apparently. And Paul says that they wish they had an interest in the Steam Deck, but I've currently got 3 current gen consoles. Wow. Yeah, I remember you getting the PlayStation 5 around Christmas time. So I'm trying to curb that desire to get a current gen console. And actually it's this project that I'm trying to curb it with. And in fact, these, I know I've got lots of them here, but these are going out to different family members. Now, some of them are for me, but some of them are going to family members. And this is my way of giving some kids in the family consoles just ahead of the summer holidays, loaded up with some classic games for them to enjoy. Because it turns out you give a bunch of, what are the age ranges now? They're all between 7 and 12, 7 and 13 now. You give them a bunch of classic games and they will get bags of enjoyment out of these classic games, just as, you know, I did. They don't necessarily have to have all of the current flashy stuff. So these are going into various family members' homes. But it's been a journey working with some of these cases, and I've now figured out just how much of a hill climb I'm faced with when I have to work on some of the other cases that are coming up, and I'll get to all of that. Hey, Popey, how are you doing? Oh, wow, your Steam Deck arrives in 1 hour. Maybe I need to pop over. That'll be my first opportunity to see one in the flesh. Popey's only, you're like 20 minutes away, so that's entirely doable. Hello, camera. You focusing on my friend. Right then. So King Egypt's got theirs. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Yeah, it seems that supply. I ordered mine exactly 51 weeks ago. Today, 51 weeks ago today. And the current status is I should be offered it sometime in August, I think. So they're getting through them. Right then. I didn't order the Steam Deck, so Tommy didn't order one. Yeah, do you regret that decision now, or are you fine with that? Right then, let's go and see if that script is finished. It should have done. There we go. So that one's finished. So that was the generic Raspberry Pi image build. I tell you what, all of those optimizations that I've been making are paying off here, because if I just do an ls of the builds directory, we can see there's a whole bunch of them that I've built this morning. Between 9 o'clock and now, we've already built several of them. It's taking a sensible amount of time to build these. We're in the wrong directory. Let's get into retro home, and we're going to do, I've also renamed them slightly, so I'll just explain my thinking on this. There we go. And we'll put a password in to start that build off. So you'll see there I used the name desktop in the thing there. Wow, there's lots of chat here. Everyone's excited for their Steam Decks. So Padza's going to get theirs in Q3. Okay, were you a first day requester, or were you slightly delayed in putting your request in, Padza? So Tommy, who says they didn't order one, says they're totally fine with it. I bought a car and a house. Fine, yes, the house and the car. Somewhere to travel places with and somewhere to live in, probably more important than a thing to game on. I think you've got your priorities right there. Yeah. So Padza says they were unfortunately a bit late ordering. Yeah, well, like I say, I did order the first day, but I think I ordered it around. I think I couldn't order when I actually was like, oh yeah, I see this is happening, I'll go and do it. And the website was buckling under the pressure. So then I had stuff to do with work, and I ordered at the end of the day, sort of, I don't know, about 6 p.m. my time, and that all went through fine. But it turns out the rest of the world had put their pre-orders in, in those few hours. So I think that initial queue was very, very steep indeed. So let's just take a look at the code here, because I made a little change, and I'll explain my rationale here. So previously, we have made this sort of integrated embedded desktop environment. In fact, that's looking a little bit on the large side. So we'll just bring that down. There we go. So previously we had this concept of a Raspberry Pi image and a Raspberry Pi Mini image, and the mini one being the one without the desktop. Anyway, I've decided to tip things on its head. I've decided that the default build will be without a desktop. We're going to focus on the emulation stuff. So all of these case-specific builds, regardless of whether they're handheld or these what we'll call set-top style cases, they will all get a version of Retro Home, which is just the emulation stuff. And then I'm going to make two builds, which are inclusive of the desktop, and that's for the Desk Pi and the generic Raspberry Pi. And these are intended to be the, in air quotes, developer editions. So that having that desktop as a backdoor is a useful tool if you want to.
Thank you for the follow, TH0B3.
Oh, the Rob. There we go. I figured that one out. The TTS didn't get it right. Hello, the Rob. Thanks very much for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Oh, interesting. So Padsa says that they ordered their Steam Deck in April, 6th of April to be precise. So very recently, but you're still a Q3 delivery date. That's impressive. So they must have significantly ramped up the rate at which they I tell you what, those of you who are in chat, just I know a few of you have said, let's have got for those people that have got their Steam Decks, ordered for those people that have ordered, waiting for those people that are waiting, and don't care for those people that are not. If you just type in chat whether you've got one, you're waiting for one, or you don't care. Graham don't care. Good morning, by the way. So King Egypt's got theirs. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Now, I realise that it's obviously mostly Linuxy stuff here. So it's interesting that I see... Hello, Zeb, by the way. It's interesting that I see people who I know to be, you know, fellow Linux nerds. Hello, Phil. The number of don't cares is interesting because I think within the Linux community there was a lot of initial hype about the Steam Deck because it is a Linux powered device. But it's interesting that some real keen Linux nerds simply don't. That doesn't matter. Did you see it as what? As an implementation detail? Zeb says, not a gamer other than World of Warships. Okay, so that's purely desktop gaming then. When you play that particular game. And hello there, Kimuchi, I think that's how we pronounce that. Just found out about it now. What have you just found out about the Steam Deck? Is that what you've just been learning about? Welcome to the stream, by the way. So Graham says, yeah, they're not really into gaming these days. Yeah, I'm increasingly just caring about retro gaming these days. I love racing games. Absolutely love racing games. And the Forza 4 and Forza 5 are beautiful and excellent to play, and I'll gladly play those on PC and put time into them. But any other kind of PC games, I can't get mega excited about. I have been enjoying the Tomb Raider stuff, and this I suppose is almost retro, but I've been playing the Monkey Island games with my daughter on Steam, the remastered versions, and also the reignited trilogy of Spyro. Playing that with my wife and daughter, and I think those qualify as retro gaming, even though they're in air quotes like modern reproductions of those games. So I think I've realised that I just like the simplicity and the pick up and play ability of simple games, up, down, left, right, and something to fire and what have you. Just I don't have the patience for learning complex key layouts and game strategies. I just when I want to play a game, I just want to start playing and not have to think about it too much. So Paul is mostly playing JRPGs. So the PS5, yeah, the PS5 gets used a lot for that, yeah. So Padza says, I ordered it because I wanted to support Valve. I love what they've done with Linux. That's a fair point. I mean, Valve are a corporation and they're obviously printing money with Steam, irrespective of, what they do with the Steam Deck. And but their commitment to developing the Linux drivers for the various IGPs and GPUs, that's been a long game. And yeah, I think by buying a Steam Deck, you are sort of supporting that endeavor to some extent. So King Egypt says, if you used to like beat 'em ups, I do like old classic beat 'em ups, then take a look at the new Teenage Ninja Turtles game. Okay. This is a brand new game. I guess it's on Steam, right? Yeah, I do like the brawlers and the beat 'em ups. Yeah, King of Fighters, that sort of thing. I used to love all that. Double Dragon. Yeah, they're among my favorites. So I'll just get back to this description. So the desktop editions, there's only going to be two. One for a generic Raspberry Pi, one for the Desk Pi, and I'm going to consider those like the developer environment versions, just useful. And everything else is going to focus on the emulation stuff and the Ludo front end. And that's because I'm starting to spot where the gaps are in Ludo. And I think if I try and paper over that by saying, oh, well, there's this secret sort of desktop mode where you can fix that, then it's avoiding what actually needs to be done, which is perhaps I need to help with Ludo and add or address some of the missing features or bugs and things like that. So I think by putting Ludo front and center for most cases, it kind of twists my arm a little bit to make sure that experience is as good as it can be. So let's go over here and see how this current build was running. It's still going. What was this? Was this was it a Raspberry Pi desktop edition? I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, the language pack is being installed at the moment. So if I just bring up a file manager, we'll see how these builds are progressing. This is what we've got so far. We've got the Desk Pi version and the Desk Pi version with desktop. And you'll also see I'm producing the compressed images here, and that's because I'm super serial about actually publishing these as downloads. We've then got this one here, which isn't going to get published, but we'll talk about. In fact, what we'll do is we'll stick that on a card in a minute and test it. We've got this one, which is the generic Raspberry Pi image, which we will be publishing. And we're currently building the generic Raspberry Pi image with the desktop included, and we will be publishing that as well. And then we have this image here, which we've built, which is called the retro flag image. And that works on, if it's a set-top case on my desk, it supports all of them. So I think this is where we can start to talk about these cases. Although don't be put off by talking about your Steam Decks and just gaming in general on Linux. I will keep an eye on chat if you've got any new information. And King Egypt's just filling in some of the gaps on that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing. So he's saying it came out on Steam a few weeks back. It's like playing the old arcade machine, and I didn't realise how much I need that in my life. Interesting. That was a lot of fun, that game. I do remember it. And it's free on Game Pass, he says, if you've got Xbox. I need to pull my finger out and get Game Pass up and running. I think I've decided I'm going to ditch Stadia and probably GeForce Now as well, because I'm just not using them. And that's a topic for another day, I think. So here we have a bunch of cases, and these ones that I'm identifying now are all made by Retro Flag, and they all have the same common component in them that controls things like these reset buttons and power switches. Whoops, and they all have them. They're here, and here on the front of these ones. And they advertise them as safe power off features. Now, let's start with the good things about these retro flag cases and the main reason that I got them. And that's that they are authentic looking, and when you put one of these in the front room, it's kind of attractive to have there, and paired up with some 8-bit do controllers that match, you know, the theming of the case, it looks fantastic. And there's another organization that actually make reproduction original design Mega Drive or Genesis, whichever region you're from, controllers, and this is my favorite because it looks great. So they do look good, and in terms of the finishing on the actual cases themselves, physically nothing to complain about. But they make a big thing about this safe shutdown stuff, and as a user, it's beyond awful, and I'll explain why. They wrote those, in air quotes, drivers some years ago, and the landscape has changed. And if you look at the GitHub repository for that project, in fact, we could go and do that now, just to sort of demonstrate the point. They are simply not caring about anything that anyone is saying or doing over there. So if we go to GitHub and retro flag, this is the high case safe shutdown stuff. You'll see there's a bunch of issues and a bunch of pull requests. It's been years since anything significant has been done here. The only update was the README when they introduced the new handheld case, and they needed a different repository for that. There's a whole bunch of issues which basically say it doesn't work, and there's nobody responding to that. There's a bunch of pull requests which is how to make these problems go away, and they're just languishing. Nothing's being done about them. So it's not great, and part of the problem is here that things have moved on since Linux kernel 5.11. The way that you address the headers, the GPIO headers on Raspberry Pi, has changed, and these drivers, these reference drivers, are written using RPi GPIO, which does not work anymore. And in fact, in contemporary Linux distros, this package is not in the archives anymore because they know it doesn't work anymore. So you have to use LGPIO or a more convenient wrapper like GPIO 0, which is why I've done some streams where we've looked at this, and we've been doing this sort of thing. So if we go to the retro flag repository here, we will see in user local bin, I have written our own implementation of these drivers using modern APIs. And what I'm thinking of doing is maybe spinning these out into a separate GitHub repository and just publishing a bunch of packages for the different case drivers, because this particular issue is not just specific to retro flag. So because of this issue, what I've also noticed is some of the bigger sort of I don't count myself in the same league here, but I'll be clear. The bigger projects like RetroPie and Recalbox, they are deliberately, it seems to me, keeping themselves on a 5.10 kernel, because they know full well if they go to 5.11, all of this stuff that comes from these various case vendors ceases to work, and they're going to have to invest in their own drivers, like I have been doing. Hey Yannick, how you doing? So my first sort of observation about these retro flag cases is that from a software point of view, it's not great. They haven't been maintaining the software. They don't care about what the feedback they're getting. They don't care about the contributions that have been sent to them. They're not responding to issues. And generally speaking, if you buy one of these cases and you try and use their scripts to install it, it doesn't function. And they make a big advertisement about how important that feature is. So I feel that that's like a black mark against these products. Now, the other thing I would say is this one, which is one of their more expensive cases, which there's a lot to like about, and has a really nice feature where it has these cartridge themed drive caddies. So that's an SSD in there. This is a SATA interface, so you could put spinning rust in there. This is good because higher capacity, and these SATA SSDs vastly outperform micro SD. So you can put, a decent games collection on there, and you can scan it, quickly and all of that good stuff. But this is a case for a Raspberry Pi, and the controller that they've chosen to use for the SATA interface is the one controller that is well known in the Raspberry Pi community to be the least compatible with the Raspberry Pi. And in fact, not just Raspberry Pi, but Linux in general, because it doesn't have a proper spec compliant implementation of the SATA interface. So you either need to manually enable the quirks on older kernels for that controller, or you need to be using an up-to-date kernel that has those quirks already identified for those controllers. So Retroflag made this case, which is gorgeous, is specifically for the Raspberry Pi 4, and then paired it with a controller which is well known to be not the controller that you want to use for Raspberry Pi related projects. So people that do buy external SSDs for the Raspberry Pi, they know what controllers they're looking for, and the JS Micron controllers are not it. So, it lacks some awareness about like the community that they're trying to address. So I feel like there are some not good choices being made in terms of the hardware and the software that go into these things. And talking about the hardware again, these power on, power off switches, it requires what's called a device tree overlay. And that's a mechanism to sort of configure the way, for example, the GPIO pins operate on the Raspberry Pi. So they hook into some pins to control the power. Now their device tree overlay, when you choose the power off button, it doesn't just signal to the Raspberry Pi that it's now time to power down. It does send that signal, but also when you disconnect from the pin, it actually powers off immediately, which is not great. So I have found somebody who's reverse engineered that device tree and published the source code. I need to test it. But they, instead of powering off, actually send a notification that the power off is happening, which is a much more responsible approach. I've kind of worked around it for the time being. It is a safe shutdown of sorts, and I've tested it on all of these cases on multiple versions of Raspberry Pi, and it's good enough. But I'll explain.
Thank you for the follow, Lahumus.
Hey Lahumus, thanks for stopping by. Welcome to the stream. So if we take a look at, I'm in the wrong place entirely. I want to be in the case folder. So if we take a look at the Retroflag driver that I've implemented, and this will be subject to change in the future. We have a bunch of stuff here to, just handle the event, but we'll look down here at what we're doing. And we look for, has the reset button been pressed? If it is, we're doing a reboot, otherwise we're doing a power off. And so what we do here is, in the power off condition, we actually tell the operating system to flush the disk caches, because we are going to power off in momentarily. So let's make sure everything's committed to disk. And there's not it, but up here, previously, it called a function up here where it does actually issue the shutdown or power off command to the OS. So by the time we get here, a power off is in progress. And the issue is, because of the way that this device tree overlay works for these buttons, what happens is, if we just let the OS shut down, it will shut down gracefully, but it will leave the fans running in these cases, and it will leave them in a state where the power button can't then be used immediately to turn the device back on again. You actually have to turn it off, even though it's off in air quotes, to shut the fans down, and then turn it on again. So what I'm doing is flushing the disks. At this point, there is no time to do any kind of assessment as to what the shutdown status is. So then I disconnect that power off switch pin, which actually cuts the power completely. So I've tested this. It is fine. It is committing everything to disk. It's very late in the shutdown process by the time it does this, so it's kind of okay. It's not ideal, which is why I'm going to switch the device tree at some point. But by doing this, what we actually do is we do shut down the fans. We do shut down all of the circuitry, so when it's off, you can immediately just flip the power switch back into the on position and it comes back up immediately. So it functions as you expect, you know, it's turn off and onable, as we used to say. And then obviously for the reboot, it's fine. So all we do for the reboot is we just tell this process just to wait here because the rest of the operating system is shutting down and we're doing a reboot. So the whole OS comes down and power cycles and we come back up again. So the reboot stage is fine. So in reflection, these retro flag cases, they do look for the business. Some questionable decisions about how their software has been produced, how it works, their lack of commitment to any kind of community collaboration, and then also when it's a device made specifically for a Raspberry Pi, some quite poor choices in terms of the hardware that they've gone with. And that does roll over to some extent to these, but not as bad, and I'll talk about handheld ones in a moment. Now, one that I have been working with just recently and I do quite like a lot, and that's this one. This panel that you plug in the back with the built-in LCD and speakers. This is actually surprisingly good, and I really like it. It sounds better than you'd expect. It looks great. It's cute. This case is very authentic looking. So aside from the misgivings about the way the power switches work, which, as I say, I'm working around, is good. Panel on the side to access all of the extra I/O when you need to. And that's an interesting point in itself. So this one I really like. SD card is accessible at the bottom. I like this one. But by the same token, some of these have got some weird features. Like this one has got the Ethernet here. And I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up. But if you plug an Ethernet cable in there, it is borderline impossible to get it back out again because of the way it's basically inverted upside down. So this one, not a fan of, because I did plug an Ethernet cable in it at home. I was using it to do some testing and I had to get quite creative in order to disconnect the Ethernet cable. Although this is my favorite looking of the cases, it's kind of hampered that I'm never going to plug it into Ethernet again, ever, which is a bit of a shame. And then there's these weird things. I don't know what the point of this is. These cases come with these faux cartridges. Now, you immediately think, well, they must go in here. Well, they don't. They don't actually go in. They don't plug in or slot in any way whatsoever. So they're kind of pointless, and they're supposed to be SD card holders, you know, so you could have multiple SD cards. Problem is, this one I've never been able to open. It's absolutely clamped tight shut. This one I can. This one comes apart fine. But it's like, well, what's the point? Like, if I can't actually store this with the case, then why bother? I mean, these have got flip-up lids, and it also says SD card storage, but you can't get your fingers in to get the cards in and out. So there's, again, these are features that are advertised that are absolute frippery and completely pointless in my opinion. So, rant over. A bit of a mixed bag with these cases. I do love the way they look. That's why I got them. They've been a total faff to get working from a software and hardware integration point of view. I've had to write my own drivers. That's beyond what most people who would be buying these are for, and most people that would buy these will run their scripts, and their scripts are years out of date and don't work with modern stuff anymore. So all round, you know, if you're prepared to write your own drivers or come and find people that have written new drivers, then okay, but look good. Software and hardware decisions, curious at best. So there we go. That's my opinion on those. Anyone got any of these? Do you agree with any of that stuff? Hello Yannick, how you doing? Good to see you back here again. Hey King Egypt. Let's have a look. What you do like this? So you're referring to this one, Yannick. So Yannick says that he did like this one. So yeah, it's actually pretty decent. The screen is 800 by 600 resolution. So I was playing on this one the other day, and it's great. And what's good about it is it's nothing clever. So the way it works is this whole piece unscrews and disconnects from the back of the case. You can see the seam here, and it plugs in to the power, and it passes through the micro HDMI on the Raspberry Pi 4 to a full-sized HDMI. So this screen is just an HDMI display that carries the audio and the image. So it doesn't require any what are known as DPI drivers for like these embedded screens, and I'll get to embedded screens in just a minute. So this works really well. We're going to be keeping this one at home. I have one of these without the screen that is going to the in-laws, along with some 8-bit DOE controllers to sort of recreate. They've got a failing. My original from the 90s, my original PlayStation 1 is dying, and they have a particular game that they love. So that's going there to replace a 3D printed PlayStation case I put in last year sometime. So this one I'm quite a fan of. Right then. The unprotected Pi. Well, the thing about the unprotected Pi is if you've got a Pi 4, I think it's a hazard because they get so hot. So I would always suggest. So Luke says they would like the one without the screen. I can show you what it looks like. Here's the other one. And yes, you can see this one's not been out of the packaging. But here we go. It's exactly the same, except it doesn't have the screen bolted on the back. There's the screws for where the screen attaches. And it has a little flip up thing. And this is what your SD card storage. And look at that, it's accessible and it works. This is also the exhaust for the fan, so if it is getting a bit toasty, you can open this up to let it vent. There's the reset and power switches, and it takes a Raspberry Pi 4. So that's it, and then the SD card goes in the underside there. So this is it, and it's quite nice. I should also mention the other issue. They do come with you can buy them with fans. Buy your own fans for the Raspberry Pi, because the ones that come with these kits are cheap fans, and boy are they loud. And that's my other complaint about these retro flag cases. They do have a header to power fans, which is great, but you can't control the fan speed, which is rubbish, because they just run at full speed. So unless you're prepared to put sort of a resistor in place in order to, you know, make them run a bit slower, or otherwise do some kind of modification to put a controllable fan in, they're loud, basically. They're loud, obnoxiously loud. So again, it requires effort as the customer to replace the fan or modify it in some fashion to actually make it, you know, more sensible. So must not buy. Yeah, well, I tell you what, I can get to my absolute favorite case in a bit. So let's just get back to where the builds were running, because I think this one is finished. here we go. So that was the Raspberry Pi desktop. So let's do a GPi case, which is here, and this is not ready for release, but we're going to try and do a test build so we can test this stuff out. Okay, so then we'll get on to we'll get on to these other cases. So I've got this one. I'm going to flash a memory card for this one now, and we'll talk a little bit about these two handheld cases, which are the two that I've worked with. And in fact, this is the original GPi case. I have the GPi 2 as well, but the reason I'm working on this one is because there was a project where they made replacement cartridges. So this is the cartridge in air quotes that comes with the case, and it was originally intended for a Raspberry Pi Zero, the original Raspberry Pi Zero. But because the original Raspberry Pi Zero is pin compatible with the Raspberry Pi 2, Raspberry Pi Zero 2, stupid naming convention, I've got a Raspberry Pi Zero 2 in here, which is significantly more powerful and makes this device a lot more interesting. But prior to the Raspberry Pi Zero 2 coming out, there's an independent guy on the internet who made this, which is a cartridge for this. Here we go, like so, and it's a slightly bigger cartridge, and it has a Raspberry Pi Compute Module 3 inside it. So this provided a means to get a significant performance upgrade out of this device. And then, rather unfortunately, just as the Raspberry Pi Zero 2 came out, they made a revised cartridge case, and this has got a Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4 inside it, which again is another step up in performance. So I'm currently trying to get this working with all three of these cartridges, and so far I have the Pi Zero 2 and the CM4 working to some extent. That we'll get on to what's working exactly and what's not in just a little bit, and then we'll take a look at this one first. So we'll actually get an image written out for that one. So let's get this in the card reader. In fact, I've got a card in, so we'll use that. Let's bring up my imager, make sure this is on the right screen. There we go. So we're going to write out, and I haven't tested this, and it's not ready to release yet, but we'll give it a try. Oh wow, where would I get that last cartridge? I will show you. I don't know if they're still available for order or not, but I will show you. We'll just get this writing to disk, and we will give it a go. So let's start that writing. Okay, so whilst that's going, let's bring up the web browser. Come on, brain. If we go, in fact, the easiest thing for me to do is actually go and look at the source code where I made some notes on this stuff. Here we go. Right, here we go. These are the two links we need. So I'll actually paste these into chat for you, so you can follow these yourself as well. But I will open these up in a browser. I don't know if they're still available for sale or not. Well, let's go and find out. So this is the CM4 variant. And here it is. Looks like they might be available. So here we go. So Retro Games Restore, independent developer. I found them from Reddit, and they posted about this, the original project, which was for the CM3, and I ordered that. And then this one came out at the end of last year, and I ordered this as well. And like I say, to some extent I have this working, but not completely, and I'll explain what the issue is here. And it's not the fault of this. In fact, technically it's not anyone's fault. It's just in my opinion, a bit of a black mark against Retro Flag, but I understand why they've made the decisions that they've made. So this is an interesting place. So it looks like you can still buy them. There we go. So those links are in the chat. Have fun with that. And Yannick says, in a previous life, when I had time to do things, I planned on building a full-size gaming cabinet. Yeah, okay, so I have a Picade over here, unconstructed. My last Raspberry Pi 4 is reserved for that. And at some point I'll get to building that. So you're welcome, King Egypt. I hope that you can find what you want from there. So let's talk about, well, let's go and see, did that image finish writing? It did. Okay, so let's hit continue there. I have no idea if this is going to work at all because this is untested. And Surfcat says, hey, welcome to the stream, by the way. Thanks for stopping by. They say, I really want one of those Pi Game Boys. Okay, well, I'll talk about the Game Boy editions in a bit more detail in just a moment. We're going to start with this one, which I don't think, I mean, does anyone recognize what this is styled after? Do you know which Nintendo product this is inspired by? It wasn't a particularly well-known model.
Thank you for the follow, Dave.
First person to get it in chat wins a prize of knowing stuff, I suppose. No one knows this one.
Thank you for the follow, Surfcat.
Thanks, Surfcat. Welcome. And also Dave. Hello, Dave. Thanks very much. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, so it does look a bit like the Game Watch. I do agree. I think the color makes it look like the Game Watch, but it actually is styled after something else entirely. But it is reminiscent of the Game & Watch because of the color scheme. But this color scheme was an exclusive color scheme of the device that this is styled after for its Japanese release, and it was called the Gameboy Micro, and it was intended to be a smaller version of like the Game Boy Advance, and it had the backwards compatibility to older Game Boys removed, so it was like a cost reduced version. So this is made by a company called Waveshare. They make loads of Raspberry Pi gadgets, you know, LCD screen add-ons, hats, and they have a line of in air quotes handheld games consoles, most of which are very much in the very janky home construction homebrew project department, but this one is kind of the finished article. So Yannick says about this design, the 70s called they want their console back. I think that's why I like this one so much. There's a lot to like about this as well. So this has got a Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4 inside it, and it has a rechargeable battery inside it, and it uses this USB port here to charge, and if you open the thing up there are some switches so you can change the way that USB port behaves. So if you want to do some debugging, you can switch it into a mode where you can connect over a network interface to it or plug in, you know, regular peripherals and stuff. So here we go. I'm going to turn this on. Like I say, I haven't tested this build, so I don't know if it works, but we'll turn it on. I don't know if you'll see on the camera here, the lights are a bit bright. You can see those are green. Those change from green to blue to red to indicate the battery, the remaining battery. And I've turned it on and I don't actually see it doing anything yet, which is worrying because I did make a change, so it's possible that I've actually busted the... Oh no, there we go. There we go. There's the boot splash. So let's see if this comes up. So this was the first handheld device I enabled with Retro Home. But you can see it's taking some time. So that's basically the bootloader had initialized. Now, hopefully, the kernel is booting. We won't know that for sure until we see a Retro Home logo, which can take about 10 seconds to appear. And this is one of these interesting things I need to figure out, like if I can improve there at all. We'll just put that there and hope that this comes up. There's a good chance that it won't, because I did make a change and we could just be stuck with a black screen. But fortunately, the change that I've made, I can just plug this card in and edit a config file and hopefully restore functionality. And it looks like I'm going to have to do that because I would have expected. I'm just going to leave that for a couple more seconds, but I think I've broken it, but we can go and fix it. The Game & Watch. What's this King Egypt saying? Okay, right. That's not coming up. So I'm going to turn this off. No safe shutdown here. So that's off. I'm going to pop the card out and I'm going to edit the bootloader configuration. Hopefully restoring the broken behavior. Okay, there we go. What do I need to do? I need to go to this view and we'll just bring up a file explorer. That's a bit massive. Let's make it smaller. Oopsie. System boot. Here we go. So here's the bootloader configuration. And I think all I need to do is uncomment that. I was just testing a theory and it turns out I was wrong. So this is also going to betray some stuff I'm still trying to learn about the Raspberry Pi, and I'll get to in a little bit. So if I plug that in now, there's a 50-50 chance it might work this time. So let's try it again. Which way up was this? The other way, I think. Right, let's turn that back on again. We'll put that there. I'm going to have a sip of tea whilst that powers up, and we'll see if we actually get the thing working. So this has got a 320 by 240 display there, and this is the new bit that I'm learning about Raspberry Pi. I've never done anything which is with DPI screens on Raspberry Pi. I've always relied on HDMI, and it turns out when you get into DPI screens there's a whole bunch of new stuff you need to learn. And what I'm figuring out is this Retro Home, which I've elected to use. This is not going to come up at all, is it? Have I broken it completely? Man, that's frustrating. Oh, I wonder if it's because I've included the...
Thank you for the follow, Inspector Diameter.
I think I might know why it's not working. Okay. I've also included the frame buffer Xorg driver. Thanks very much for the follow, by the way, Inspector Diameter. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, okay, it's something else that I've broken. I've added another driver to the X stack. I think I might have to go back and rebuild a bunch of these images because I think I might have broken this for almost everything. Anyway, so I'm going to turn that off. I think I know what I've done here. I think this is now using the wrong driver to bring up the graphics display. So when you use these, so I'm using Retro Home. It's an OpenGL powered front end. It uses GLFW as the toolkit, and consequently it requires basically it requires a display server. At the moment I'm using Xorg, but I think I can switch that out for Wayland, something I will test and sort of look at the pros and cons of using in the future. But when it's using kernel mode setting for the display driver, if you've got these DPI panels, some of them operate in a mode where you can't use KMS, so consequently it falls back to the frame buffer and software rendering for OpenGL or GLES, and that obviously sucks for performance. So this one actually does work with KMS, which is good because you get all of the acceleration performance from the Pi. I want to lean on the GPU as much as possible, but I want to use the GPU in the ways in which I'm familiar on Linux, which is all of the contemporary APIs that are available via Mesa and DRI and KMS and what have you, as opposed to how most of the existing retro projects work. And this is not a criticism, it's just how they're doing it, and it makes sense for when you consider how long those projects have been around, which is having builds of the emulators that in many cases link to the Broadcom.
Thank you for the follow, smoking_on__joint.
Hello, smoking on a joint, welcome to the stream, thanks for stopping by. They're using the sort of the original way to get to the acceleration features through the SoC and the proprietary sort of wrappers for the SoC facilities. So I don't have that luxury, so I've got to get things working on a display on a in KMS with a display server, and this does that. Where this one causes me a problem is this controller is not recognized. It's either a controller that's not in the SDL controller database, so I will need to add it, or it's something other than a controller, a regular game controller, and therefore I need to like map it with evdev in some way so that it will get picked up by the game, by Ludo. So I haven't investigated that, but this one I did get working. It brought up the display, it was accelerated, but I had no controller input. So this one I need to take apart, turn the switches on so I can plug peripherals into it, and then I can actually start, doing stuff. So this one I quite like. The form factor's nice. I think putting some Game Boy games on this would make this a really nice little handheld device. So that's that one. Volume rocker on the side, courage port underneath, shoulder buttons. The controller feels quite nice as well. Not great, this is a bit spongy, but these buttons are all very good. So that one I quite like, and Waveshare have published good technical information and device tree overlays. I just don't know what the device is without, what this controller device is without plugging it into something. So I will get to that one. I think that one is a 5 out of 10 in terms of effort to get working, which brings us on to this one and its display. In fact, let's see if I can get this one to work. I will pop this card out of here, and if our build is finished, I think we'll have an image for that case. So let's take a look here. Yep, that build has finished. So let's plug this one in. And we'll get that written out. And we'll actually turn this one on. So this is the G-Pi case. There it is. And whilst that image is writing out, let's just bring up this, and what I'm trying to do with this one is not the command line but the config.txt. So this device, I'm doing the standard bring up the bits and bobs, up to this point this is what I do on every Raspberry Pi device that I'm making at the moment. And then this is where it deviates. So this is where we're actually now into the specifics of bringing up this display on this particular device. And so we do a bunch of stuff too. And Retroflag published this information, although when we get to the device tree overlays, there's something I need to talk about there, which is a topic I'm still learning, so I'm not fluent on this. But they published this information, so that's how we get this to come up and a display to work. And then similarly, information about how to bring up the audio, because you're using the Pi 0 in this case, Pi 02, and it's how you route the audio to this speaker here and the headphones here, and they've got, you know, the way that's all connected through GPIOs. And again, they publish a device tree overlay for this, and they also, you know, tell you what the pinouts need to be. And also I've discovered that that is not something actually exists anymore, so that can go. So what I'm doing here is using these conditionals in the bootloader configuration to say on a Pi 0 do this. On the compute module 3, this one, it needs the same setup, but the PWM mode changes. I haven't got this one to work at all yet. Not the audio, but I just haven't got the display to come up. And then on the compute module 4 version, and again, it's all about the audio, well, the audio and the display to some extent. We need to do things slightly differently. So what I'm trying to create is a single image for this original version of the case that supports all three of the different things you can plug into it. And I've got 2 working so far. And when I say I've got 2 working, I will show you. So I say I will show you. There's a fair chance I've busted it, of course, but let's see how we go. So this is the Raspberry Pi 02. We've got a little, you know, port protector thing there, and you slot the SD card in to this here, and you close that up, and it looks like a Game Boy cart. I mean, it's quite a nice idea. And you plug that in there, and that's the device, and we'll turn it on. So I've got some debug turned on this one, because like I say, this isn't ready yet. There we go. So we can see all of the kernel stuff happening, but the reason I've done this is I was actually trying to get the display to come up, and this is like a quick indication that I have indeed got the display working. And now we can see there's our bootloader for Retro Home, and this is all looking good, and I was getting very excited about this, because this was, I was thinking, I'm quids in here. And the other thing that I learned is, because I have got this, and now we're, you know, properly loading, so all of this stuff that you've seen working on the, in air quotes, like, you know, desktop versions of these cases is all working a treat. And more importantly, the controller that's embedded here presents as a Microsoft Xbox 360 controller, so consequently works with everything without any messing about or special casing. And even what isn't clear is on the back here, these are the shoulder buttons. I don't know if you can hear those clicking, but the shoulder buttons are actually around here, which is kind of clever. So if we just let this come up, hopefully it takes a little while for Ludo. There it is. So, and now look, I can, there it is. There is Retro Home working on this case. Except, and it all works. The audio works, the screen's working. But this is then where I'm learning. These screens, some of them have support for being brought up with KMS, kernel mode setting, which means I get acceleration, and some do not. And this is one that does not. So consequently, all of the OpenGL rendering that's happening, not just for these menus, but for the emulation of the games, is all happening in software. And therefore the performance, for some of the older titles, it's fine. You'd never know. It's burning up too much CPU, so the battery endurance won't be great, but it works. But even things like R-Type Leo are too much for this. So what I figured out is I need to write my own device tree overlay to bring this screen up in a way that KMS can support in order that I can access all of the acceleration. So is there an easy way to check for KMS support? Not really, because most of the time when these vendors publish their device tree overlays, they publish the compiled objects, not the source code for the device tree. So you can't tell at a glance whether or not that device tree object is a KMS driver, like this one is, or just a enable the pins on the GPIO, and it will only work on the frame buffer driver. So ahead of time, no. So I know almost nothing about device tree overlays other than the function that they perform. I know nothing about writing my own device tree overlays. So I've got a bit of a mountain to climb in order to do that, because I obviously want this one to work, and more importantly, the GPI Case 2, the new version of this which I have, which is the same idea as this but has a Compute Module 4 actually integrated inside the case, is identical to this, except the screen is twice the resolution. So this is 320 by 240. The GPI 2 is 640 by 480. But it uses the same device tree overlay, which tells me again it's going to be unaccelerated. I can't use acceleration. So but because it's a different size, that will require another device tree overlay that I need to write so that I can bring it up with acceleration. So there's a bunch of work I need to, some stuff I need to learn and stuff I need to make. But I want to get these working because I saved up very hard and bought an OG Game Boy and loved it. I was living with my grandparents for some time, and I had one of these, and it was the only pleasurable thing I had in my life at that time. And so I have a great fondness for the Game Boy, and I want to, I enjoy this form factor. And I've got the newer one with the better display and a CM4. I think this one will be good enough for playing some original Game Boy games, Game Boy Advance and stuff like that, and then the other one can put some more meaty titles on. But the other problem with this, and this is something that I think somebody is addressing in the Ludo project, I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up well, but it's illegible. So when you run Ludo on, even though it's out of focus, you can't read it. It's so small. So you need to do something with the scaling when we're on low resolution displays. But that's something that somebody contributed to the Ludo project. There's some pull requests that appear to address this, and I'll be able to test. So I don't feel that the rendering size is going to be a particularly difficult problem to solve, but accelerating the display, that's borderline. I don't actually know if I'm going to be able to do it, because I know nothing about the topic. I've not looked into it at all. I'll see what I can do, but I can turn the device off and it will, everything works. It does all the right stuff. And this has a safe shutdown button as well. It has the same issues as the other one, but because it's only an on-off, I can control this one better. So yeah, I like this case. It looks beautiful. I think this is very elegant, despite the fact that I've got the CM3 version and the CM4 version. Other than using this to make it work with the Compute Module 4, I think this Compute Module 4 is going to go in the GPI Case 2. I will make these work, but I will probably keep the Pi 02 in here, because that's effectively like a cut down Raspberry Pi 3, so it's quite capable. There's a lot of games it can play. The battery endurance is going to be better than, say, the CM4. and it looks neat and flush and all the rest of it. So that's probably how I will run this one. So some work to do there, some serious homework to be done there. So I see Paul says that they never had the OG Game Boy, but they did have the Game Boy Color. Yeah, I never had a Game Boy Color. In fact, I can remember having those weird add-ons for the Game Boy, which were like magnifying glasses that clipped on the top of the case, so that you could get a better view of the game, because and also the motion blur was kind of tragic, which of course isn't an issue on these TFTs. Surfcat, the memories, indeed the memories. So I think what I need to do is, I'm actually concerned that I've completely busted all of these builds. So how can I satisfy myself that that is not the case? I think we will put a build on the DeskPi edition, and we will fire up the DeskPi, which is a case that I have added support for in terms of drivers and what have you. We've written our own drivers. This is the DeskPi. This is the DeskPi Pro. There is a DeskPi Lite, which I do not have. The DeskPi Lite is a cost-reduced version of this. This is all metal chassis and what have you. But the drivers are compatible for the fan controller and the MCU. Between those two models, we will just bring up the imager. I need a way to tell myself, notify whether things are on the right windows, because I can never tell. Right, let's put the DeskPi desktop edition on, because this is sort of my oh, well, that was unexpected. Let's try that again. There we go. So we'll write that one out. Now, what I would say is this: I was quite critical of the retro flag cases earlier, and I should say, I probably goes without saying, I'm not sponsored by any of these people, including the DeskPi stuff. But having been quite critical of the desk flag, I have nothing but good things to say about the DeskPi Pro. The hardware choices are thoughtful and well implemented, well documented. I've written my own versions of the drivers, but their versions of the drivers work because it doesn't actually use the GPIOs directly. They have a serial converter connected to the MCU, and then you send commands to the serial converter. So their drivers do work on everything without any modification, but I chose to fancy them up a little bit for our purposes, and we did that last week on a stream. So hardware choices are good. This has an SSD inside it, just like this. Has the right controller inside it, so you get the full performance. Unlike this in Quirks mode, where you get about half the potential performance of the drive. Oops, I'm sinking. And more importantly, the actual case itself and the daughter board and the way it all is put together and fits, and I have two of them. I have one here and one at home. These are fantastic, precision engineered, absolutely pin perfect alignment. They are fantastic. The additional facilities that it exposes, like the two ports on the front and the infrared port, all hook up in the usual ways you turn those things on a Raspberry Pi. No proprietary drivers, no funny device trick overlays. They're great. The fan is controllable. The power switch actually sends a message to the MCU so that you can power off, tell the MCU it's going down, and some seconds later it will power the MCU off after the device has come down. So everything about it is right. And I would say that despite how attractive these retro themed cases are, if you wanted a set-top box in your front room for retro gaming with a Raspberry Pi, that is the one to get. And if you can't afford that one, I can't remember quite how much it is, but I think it was like 60 quid. There's a Desk Pi Lite, which I don't have and I've never seen, but I know the drivers are compatible. And it's a plastic chassis as opposed to a metal chassis, and I think it's about 25 quid. If the same attention to detail in terms of the engineering of the case and how it fits together is the same, it should be great because it exposes these two USB 2 ports on the front, ideal for plugging controllers into, and everything else being presented out of the back. And the other thing it does, it converts the micro HDMI on the Pi 4 to 2 full HDMI ports out the back as well. So everything about it is just great in my opinion. And I'm going to get a third one of those. This was supposed to go under the telly, and I'm going to get a third one and put one of these in as our games console at home, and just have these as for funsies. In future streams, we're going to actually set each of these up with authentic controllers and a games library that matches the theme of the case. So that the idea is that I keep these, and when I want to play some Sega games, I just pull this one out, and this is stocked up with all of the Sega games. This will have all of the NES games, this will have all the SNES games, and so on. You get the idea. But that one will be kind of the does everything. Doesn't have everything on it, it just has those collections of games that I want to play regularly. So, Desk Pi Pro. I haven't seen the Desk Pi Lite. I'm tempted to get one so I can see how it compares, but that is the case to get in my opinion, regardless of whether it's a workstation type project or a retro gaming chassis that you want. So let's just catch up on some messages here. So Paul says it's interesting thinking back to the early gaming systems like the 64, the Mega Drive, the Game Boy Color. I only had a few games on them, so I played the hell out of them. Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I'm trying to artificially recreate for the girls in the family. They're used to having sort of just an unlimited array of choice in terms of the games that they can play on their phones and tablets and what have you. So what I'm trying to do with these devices is actually just put a small selection of classics, is comfortably like 50-60 games, but not just put the entire archive of games, because what they do is they start playing one and then they just move to another one and move to another one, move to another one. If you give them like a finite choice and it's only the good stuff, they tend to stick on a game and play it, you know, and really play it and enjoy it and get good at it. But there's enough variety in there that when they want to move on, there's another game in there, or the sequel is available or something like that. A bit hoarse, I need another cup of tea. Right, on the C64, yeah, C64 was my main. That's the machine I really grew up with. Turrican on the C64 was a technological marvel. Worth getting a C64 emulator and a copy of Turrican just to, if you know anything about how the C64 works, which I do, I used to be a C64 developer. I don't actually know how much of what is in Turrican on the C64 was done. It was astonishingly good. Yeah, I had a Game Gear, and I think I only had like 3 cartridges for that, and one of those was Sonic. And I played the hell out of that for about 3 years. An Italia 90, crikey, that's a callback. I never got into Pokemon. I don't really, I'm not being facetious. I actually don't understand what Pokemon is. I know it's something to do with cards. That's literally the extent of my Pokemon knowledge. I know it's massive, but I know nothing about it. It's completely passed me by. And King Egypt says, yep, the DeskPi Pro is amazing. The company sent out a replacement boards unsolicited when they found an issue. Oh, so do you have one, King Egypt? Interestingly. No having to go and request it like another phone. Huge fan. That's amazing. So I'm guessing that you do have one. Out of interest, what was the issue that they were addressing? Because I've not had any issues with mine. I guess that's because I think there was an original version, and I bought it when it was like the revised version, but I didn't understand the nuance of what the revisions were. But I love these. They're terrific. So let's see if my build works. Yep, we're done here. Let's go and plug that in. Let's actually power on the DeskPi. So we'll have that out. I actually need to get round to now I've released Ubuntu Mate for the Raspberry Pi. I need to get round to putting that on the SSD in the box in this DeskPi, so that I've got a permanent install, so I can just plug things into the SSD for testing this sort of stuff out. But when there's not something in the SSD drive, I've got when I don't have the SD card plugged in, the SSD has a permanent install which I can use. So I may need the keyboard just to test things are working. Yeah, this tells me that I've broken things. The fact that that's just sat at no signal now. So I have broken it. I've broken everything. So I was saying I'm going to make a new release. In fact, what I'm going to actually have to do, which I won't do now because it's going to take about an hour to run out, the scripts run multiple times, is change something in the build and rebuild all of the images, because I've included the frame buffer driver by default, which this requires, which is why I added it. But what I think is happening, and I'll have to debug this, is that the frame buffer driver is taking precedent over the mode setting driver that all of these other things require. So that should be up and running. So let's see if we can actually find the device. Although we can't see anything on the screen, let's see if we can go and prove that that is indeed what's happening. So we're going to blind discover our Raspberry Pi. So the first thing we're going to do is net discover, and we'll see what's on the network, see if we can spot it. I can't even see it. Huh. Looks like I've got bigger issues. I should have found it by now. Should see it on the 3 subnet. No, it skipped right by it. Okay, there's a big problem then. What have I done? What have I done? What would stop the... Oh, I know why. I know what's going on. So I've moved, in order to prioritize the boot order. Oh my goodness, I have made such a big mess. So I think I understand what's happening here. So if we look at the capture view, we are stuck at this no signal. So I think what I've done is broken the display server. And the display server is probably trying to start and fail. It's probably what's happening. And that's preventing the graphical target, the System D graphical target, from being reached. And in order to optimize the boot order, the boot speed, I said don't bring up network services until after the graphical target has been reached. So consequently, I've broken the display server, so the graphical target can't be reached, and now I've actually nixed my ability to connect to the thing over the network. So I may have to just take the hit of a slightly delayed time to see the graphical target in preference for always making sure we have networking so that we can do what I wanted to do right now, which is debug why the display's not coming up. So I think I will look at what I changed in the code and for that stuff. I think it's going to be, yeah, oops indeed, Yannick, oops indeed. So we have Cypheric also seems to be a yeah, we are going to be looking at Gitkraken. And also, did you notice that I've got some clever stuff going on? Look at that, somebody who brought up the Phil brought up the Kraken, and it also gives you my referral code for Gitkraken for anyone else that's a fan. So Cypheric says, I do like the Desk Pi Pro. You've got one, okay. Oh, you got it when I originally got mine and showed them back. Yeah, I'm looking at the Super 6E. Yeah, right. So the Super 6, this is a tangent, but I am trying to resist getting one of these. But let's go and show people what this is. So the Desk Pi website. Is here, and this is the Super 6C. So here we go.
Thank you for the follow, Volyard.
Hello, Volyard. Thanks very much for stopping by. Welcome. So the Super 6C is a cluster board, a mini ITX size board for 6 Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4s. I want this so much, but I have no need for it. And also the reason I'm fighting it is because I wouldn't be happy having one of these without all of the slots being filled, and you cannot get Compute Module 4s for, well, you can get them for money, but vast amounts of money. They are in very short supply right now. But yeah, I think this would be super cool. Yesterday on the work stream, so twitch.tv/slimdevops, I made a highly optimized OS for the Raspberry Pi for running containers. And I got it down to the point where in 91 megs of RAM on a Raspberry Pi, you can have the OS running and Dockerd and Containerd all sat there, so you can put your container deployments on it. So I'm thinking my optimized OS on 6 Compute Module 4s, that's with some Kubernetes, you could have some fun. With that. So yeah, since when do you need a use for something? Because if I got this now, I wouldn't be able to do anything with it, because I've only got 2 compute module. Actually, I've got 3. I've got 3 compute module 4s, but they're all allocated to things. So I would need 6 more. 6 more. And like I say, you can't find them other than scalpers. And so Ferric says, I have several Pis in a cluster in my rack cluster. So normal servers. I was looking at Turing 2. Ah, right. Okay. I'm not familiar with the Turing 2. I did used to have Raspberry Pis in I think it was a 4 or 5 tier stackable thing, and they were all Raspberry Pi 3s, which are now, you will know that most of these cases are for Raspberry Pi 3, so most of those Pi 3s are now here. I think I've got 2 Pi 3s on the shelf there, which are to go in some of the other cases that we were looking at. So let's bring up Gitkraken and see if I can identify where I broke things. Dear me, it feels like it was oh, here we go. It might be this one. Disable conman wait on. I think it was this commit here. So how am I going to be able to fix this without rebuilding? I can go to the DeskPy image, go to the final stage. Yeah, I'm having a little think. Here, Paul. Just trying to think how I can unmess this up quickly. So, hey Takov, good morning, how are you? So, Takov says, have you thought about going Kubernetes cluster with optimized SlimAA Docker? So, Takov, yesterday on the Slim DevOps channel, I made a highly optimized Ubuntu-derived operating system for the Pi, which is a host OS for the Raspberry Pi to run and build containers efficiently. And we made good progress with that. That's an actual thing. So I'll be publishing those images on Monday. But then the next step is to then make optimized Ubuntu-derived base images, and then we'll put our apps inside those using those base images, then slim them, and then I'm interested to see just how crazy can we get, what kind of density. And looking back, there was a competition some years ago to get over 2,000 web server instances running on, I think, a Raspberry Pi 2 at the time. So I'm thinking of like reinvigorating that challenge and maybe use like a Raspberry Pi 3, because I think that 1 GB memory constraint is interesting, and see, you know, how many web server containers could we get running on a Raspberry Pi 3. A bit of a fun sort of hacking challenge. So I think this could be the culprit, and if it's not this, it's around this time when I was making these modifications. So I think what we'll do then is we'll go to the code. In fact, let's just look at that again. That was Conman Wait Online. Okay. So if we go to our image building piece, so what we're not fixing is what I think is the underlying problem, which is that the frame buffer driver is present. But what we will do is confirm that that is indeed the problem. So if we go to the configuration step, no, the clean step actually, we'll do this here. We'll do nspawn inside the container, and we will system couple
Thank
enable.
you for the follow, Mado Fury.
Hello Mado Fury, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. And we'll just enable that service again. We disabled it further up, but in this final stage we'll enable it, which should mean that we can't progress to attempting to start the graphical target until the network services are available, I believe is the way that works. Now, I could be wrong about that. Let's just try this whilst we're here. Oops, let's just see if in the intervening time it's actually got to a point where, no, it hasn't. And it's definitely plugged in. I was using this last night, so I'm pretty sure it's all hooked up correctly. So we'll rebuild the DeskPy desktop case image, and we'll just double check that we've only got those 2 stages enabled, so it shouldn't take long at all to produce that image. We'll turn this Pi off. We will get the card in drive ready to go. So I'm fully expecting that the display won't come up, but I'm hoping that the network services will. Then I can log in and actually confirm my suspicions about what's busted. Hello, Madder Fury. Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you doing? Thanks for stopping by. Welcome. How did you find us? Yeah, good. Other than this irritating cough, not enough tea. I think that's the problem. Right, there we go. So let's get that image written out, and we'll see if we're right about this. So I'm gonna have to have a think about that, because this may be something we have to do on the handheld devices, because I found that you get the inverse problem on the handheld devices. There's no Wi-Fi or Ethernet, so they get stuck waiting for the network to come up before the graphical target is met. So I think this is going to require a little bit of, I'm going to have to go and have a think in a dark room or something to overcome this conundrum. That's the one we've just, no it's not. This is the one we've just rebuilt. I've lost my mouse.
Thank you for the follow, Self-Determined Hermit.
Okay, hello, welcome to the stream. Thanks very much for the follow, Self-Determined Hermit. Why is this not showing up all the time? This is a little bit alarming. I'm plugging these in, and it's being a bit fussy about when it's registering that they're available. Right then. There we go. So, okay. Self-Determined Hermit. Asks what's all this then? An emulation system. Yes, it is an emulation system ostensibly. And I was hoping to put a new release out, but I've run into you know how it is, you make a bunch of changes at the very end. So for those of you that ever want to know what's going on, you can type bang sup in chat. I'm not going to type it. I will leave one of you to do it. If you do bang sup in chat, let's see who gets there first. I will be updating that every time I stream. So if you want to know what's going on, just do a bang sup. There you go. Well done, Abbott M. It will tell you what this stream is about, and encourage you to join the rest of the crew. So that image is written out. But to answer your question, what is this all about? I've got a project here called WTF going on. We could add that too. I'll add that as an alias. In fact, Yannick, I'm going to go and do that now. I'm going in. I'm going to the advanced settings. Command aliases is WTF is going on. Save that. Right then. There is a cooldown timer on this, but I think I might be exempt. WTF is going on. Just for you, Yannick. I spelt it wrong. Going on. There we go. It works. You're welcome. So, let's bring up the... Did I just write that out? I'm sorry, I got distracted. Did I just put that image on the card? Is that what I did? I think I did, didn't I? Yes, thanks Phil. I'm in a senior moment there. Right then, let's plug that in. Let's turn it back on and go to the capture view, and we should find that we get in exactly the same position where we've got nothing other than a lost signal on the capture card, at which point hopefully we'll be able to discover the device on the network. So, Self-Determined Hermit, I've not done a very good job of answering your question, so I'll try and be succinct. So let me just bring up. So it says, what would be the difference between your emulation system and RetroArch or Bateau Sarah? So let me explain. This is called Retro Home. It is a retro gaming operating system for the Raspberry Pi built with Ubuntu. And instead of using something like RetroArch, which is very common, or Emulation Station, it uses another project called Ludo, which is created by a couple of the RetroArch developers as an alternative front end for libretro cores, but that's designed to be super simple, like really strip away all of the complex options and just present a really simple, clean user interface. And the reason why I'm building this project using that is, as you can see, I'll just move the card reader out of the way. We have all of these different cases, and most of these are going out to the girls in my family ahead of the school summer holidays. And I wanted something that they can just plug in and turn on, and the user interface that they get presented with is just pick your console, pick your game, play your game. None of this stuff about what refresh rate do you want, what do you want, X or do you want frame buffer, do you know, all of these sort of advanced nerdy options that exist. They don't need to see any of that. They just want to turn it on, play a game, turn it off. So that's the point behind this. So I'm kind of scratching my own itch, but also using it as a...
Thank
Hello.
you for the follow, Shreddick.
Shredark or Shreddick? Shredark, I think. Welcome, thanks for the follow. So I'm using this as a project to learn some more about the Raspberry Pi in terms of its, on these handheld devices. I'm learning about like the ways the different screens get initialized and things like that, which is new ground for me. So yes, the project is on GitHub, and in fact I have a command for that as well. I hope I have a command for that. I think it's this. There we go. Bang retro home will give you the URL. So there's the URL in chat to the project. And at the moment it's a build script. And what I was hoping to do today is we've been working on this build script to create the images which have all of the enablement for these different cases. So you can just download an image for the relevant case and it's ready to go, or a generic image. But I've just found I've broken stuff. So actually I'm not making a new release today. I'll probably have to make that release over the weekend, but we are going to now just try and figure out what I broke. So we'll have a look at that. So I'm going to need this screen here. We'll come back in here. Hopefully, Self-Determined Hermit, I've answered your question. If I haven't, let me know. Or if you've got more questions, let me know. Right then. Let's do a net discover and see if we can see this Raspberry Pi on the network. Okay, now I'm confused. I must have broken this in new and interesting ways, because there is no reason why that should not be working. Thanks, Self-Determined Hermit. You're welcome. Have a good one too. Have a good weekend. So, this is most peculiar. I've really busted it, haven't I? Okay. So, Abbott M says, I didn't realise that you were the very same Martin Wimpress that led the Ubuntu desktop team. Yes, hello. That is indeed what I used to do. So I still lead the Ubuntu Mate project. That's been one of my passion projects for 8 years now. 8 years, in fact. In fact, I need to speak to Popey. It is 8 years. 8 years ago, 2 days ago, I think. And yeah, and I did used to work at Canonical, and I led the desktop team there and other stuff. But welcome to the stream. Right then. Wow, I've totally broken it. I wonder if we try this. I mean, I can't log into it, so I really don't know what its status is. I can try pressing the magic backdoor button, which is escape, and seeing what happens. What could I have broken? Well, I think the only thing I can do is rebuild one of these without the frame buffer driver installed, which won't take too long. So I think I'm going to have to do that because that seems to be, that's my best guess as to what the problem is. So that would be all the way going back to that stage. So we'll just go up to Ludo, and we will drop FBdev out because my best hunch is that's responsible for the problems. And we will kick off a build. Let's find the right tool. raspberrypi desktop. Let's go. So that will take a little while to build. There we go. Well, Yannick asks an interesting question. Yannick asks, how many Martin Wimpresses are there in the world? I thought, well, there's plenty enough. There are 2 Martin Wimpresses in England, in fact, and we often get sent each other's correspondence. We've never met in person, but we do know each other. But the other Martin Wimpress is a renowned choreographer. So I always find it amusing when I get letters or emails asking to perform cast selection for some sort of, West End show or whatever. And equally, he is baffled when he gets sent messages about, open source and Linux stuff. No, my dancing days are over. I did used to do ballroom dancing and Latin American dancing with my wife, but not anymore. Too many years of rugby have left my knees in a place where that's it's not conducive anymore. Why are you Raspberry Pi? Links ? I'm not sure I understand the question mark. So Gazbuki, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. What's your question? I'm not sure I fully understand. So there you go. You did not expect this plot Takov. Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, so there is at least 2 Martin Wimpresses in England, and I know there are others. In fact, what's really weird is that a friend of mine from school, who I've obviously known for many, many years, she remarried a couple of years ago, and she married into another Wimpress family that I did. It's an uncommon name, so we do know there are lots of Wimpresses around the world. There's so few of us that we are in touch, and we do actually have common ancestry back to the same farming community in England. The Wimpress name is originally derived from wine press, and it was part of a vineyard many hundreds of years ago in the Cambridge area. So let's see if we can try and decipher these messages. Somehow you are a perfect candidate for dancing. Really? You think so? Not these days, I don't think. No, she's just a friend from school. So yeah, there's not many of us, but we do know. In fact, I know there's someone in Australia, a Wimpress in Australia, because their domain lapsed. I think they had wimpress.net and it lapsed, and I purchased it because I think I've got most of the other Wimpress domains, and then emailed them and said, this lapsed and I've got it. If you want it back, I'll transfer it to you, which we then did a few days later. Yeah, this Wimpress thing. I can remember when I was at school, all of my school teachers thought that they were being incredibly novel when they would say, "Oh, impressive, performance this term, Martin," and it would be like, "Oh my god, I've been hearing that my whole life." And King Egypt says, regarding ballroom and Latin, my wife and I did too. I was honest about my lack of rhythm. Yeah. I wasn't. I really enjoyed the tango. I wasn't much good at the samba. I think one of the reasons why we stopped doing the ballroom dancing is my wife really didn't like the fact that I was supposed to be in charge. Traditionally men lead, and my wife would get quite grumpy and say, stop pulling me around. And the dance instructor would say, well, that is what's supposed to be happening. So I think that was a factor in giving it up. Right then. Luke says, impressive is somewhat like use the pause for me. Facepalm worthy. Yeah, indeed. Right, okay. This build is nearly done. I think what we'll do is we'll let this build, we'll boot it, see if it's abject failure or not. And then it looks like I need to put my thinking hat on, because I've made a bunch of changes and I've clearly busted something which is absolutely not ideal. I like my friend behind me, but so does my camera. It keeps on focusing back there. I think the contrast detection keeps picking it up. Yeah, I would never say I was a great dancer. I did enjoy it. It was good fun. But it wasn't, didn't come naturally, I think it's fair to say. Gosh, look at all of those languages. I wonder what this regenerating locales is written in, because gosh, it's slow. I bet it's Perl. Might have to go and look one day. So, I think having described earlier like where the issues were with some of these cases, I should sort of identify what I'm going to work on next with Retro Home. So I think there's two main things. The first is I really want to get devices like this working, accelerated, controllers working, that sort of thing. Particularly these ones, because they're very popular. And then the other thing that I need to do is start building my own versions of Ludo, the front end, to pull in some of the work in progress from other developers to test things out, because I have theories that there are pending pull requests that solve some of the issues that I've seen, and I'd like to validate that those pull requests do indeed fix those problems. And then the other thing I need to look at is the fact that the emulation cores that are shipped with the Linux version of Ludo are at least 2 years old at this point. So we need to update those. And there are some projects in Launchpad, which is where Ubuntu projects get built, which I think could address a large percentage of the emulation cores that Ludo uses, and there'll be a few that are missing, but I think that we should be able to get more recent cores available through that mechanism, and then also that may provide us with an update capability as well, to keep with the underlying platform. We shouldn't need to iterate on, it's basically just enough operating system to bring up a display server. But it's then the Ludo and the emulation cores that are really like the actual thing that's important. So if we could just have a means to update those, that would be pretty nice. And then the third thing is, in addition to those pull requests that other people are contributing to Ludo that haven't been merged yet, because of me building Retro Home in the way that I am, I've found a few edge cases in Ludo that I'd like to change that are specific to what I'm doing, and I need to speak to the author and just double check that they'd be okay with me making some changes like that. They wouldn't be changes to the whole of the way that Ludo functions, just sort of conditional statements that when it's running on Ubuntu in this way, so when it's running on Ubuntu in Ludo OS mode, that it does some things differently to do better integration. So Takov, who's been doing some research on all of this stuff as well, says, with Ludo, I started an issue on how to add custom radio switches or list-based switches to Ludo. Yeah, I saw that. I've got a question for you, Takov. To what ends? Why do you want to add additional UI elements? I think I know the answer, but it wasn't clear to me why you were wanting that capability. But I'm interested to know. So just let me know what you think you'd use that for. One of the things I'm thinking of doing is there's an update option in Ludo OS mode, which is designed to go and update a Libre Elec image, which is what Ludo OS is based on. I want to either hide that entirely in Retro Home or adapt it so that it does something like a constrained apt-get update for just the emulator portions. So that should be easy to test. You know, if you're on Libre Elec, then do the regular Ludo OS update, and if you're on Ubuntu and Ludo is in Ludo OS mode, then display a different, a different option. So Takov says, and I did not have enough time to read the source code to find a way to patch it. Oh, okay. Ludo. So another reason for me picking Ludo. The original reason was Popey suggested it as like it was a kind of a clean interface. It doesn't see sort of what I would call rapid development momentum, but it is being worked on. So there's plenty still that it could be added to, but it's written in Go, and Go is one of those languages I want to learn more about. And so by picking Ludo, and now I'm getting to the point where I see some things I'd like to change, kind of twists my arm a little bit to say, right, I need to go and actually learn some Go so I don't embarrass myself too much when I start making pull requests on this project. So that's another incentive for picking the project. Oh, I see. So adding custom thresholds to analog sticks. So I think at that point, I think the author may say that's something that they're not interested in. So if you have a little read about the project, they're being very sort of opinionated about what Ludo is and is not. And I think if you want to sort of configure sensitivity of sticks and dead zones and things like that, that's what RetroArch is for. I think the purpose of Ludo is to hide all of that stuff from let's say casual gamers who just want to turn it on and play some stuff. So I think it's deliberately without expert mode options, and I think the original author may be politely resistant to adding expert features. But you also mention and hardware specific stuff. So hardware specific stuff, are you talking about things like what, fan controls, for example? Is that the sort of thing you might be referring to? Abbott M says Go is in my top 3 favorite languages. Yeah, I know it's popular. I was at KubeCon, was it last month? And we have stickers for work with our little company mascot called Cody. And we had Cody with the various mascots of different programming languages, and we use Go for all of our back-end services written in Go at work. And we had all of these stickers out, Cody with Node, the Ruby Gem Python, the Gopher from Go, and every other language you can think of. And the Go stickers were just being taken by everybody. So we did this sticker-based data science thing. You put a stack of stickers out, 100 of each, and you see how quickly the stack goes down to measure the popularity of the language. And Go was by far and away the most popular language at the event. So Takov says yes, fan controls. So again, I would say That's bordering into an expert feature. And my feeling about things like fan controls is it's a sort of thing that a user shouldn't need to know about. If it's done right, the fan should just do the right thing. It should, like we wrote that fan controller for the Desk Pi, we created a fan curve in the software to moderate the speed of the fan based on the temperature of the CPU. And in fact, I've since learned we could improve the way that driver's written. But I think it would be good to not expose like fan control stuff, because why does my niece care about fan control settings in her games console? It should just do the right thing by default. So and this is why one of the reasons I kind of like Ludo, because they have that approach to sort of the design of Ludo, which is do the right thing in the first place. Don't ask a bunch of questions of the user that they may not know the answers to and bewilder and baffle them. Just do the right thing. Only present options when there's a genuine reason for an option to be there. And there's somebody else commenting on the Ludo project who's had some good feedback about the language that's used. So don't talk about loading cores, talk about loading emulators and things like that. No, we don't have Cobol sticker, Yannick. Nobody would be interested in that at all. So we're quite close to the end of this build, so we should be able to test that in just a moment. You bunch of you mean millennials, I think. Right, nearly done. Here we go. They're in the config step now, so it'll stuff out an image in just a moment. So what have we done? We're building without the frame buffer, and we're also making sure that that connection manager thing is enabled again. Now, for everything that I've said about Ludo, I am considering potentially introducing RetroArch as an option to build these images with. For example, if I was to build with RetroArch, I wouldn't have to write KMS device tree compatible display enablers for this, because I wouldn't need it with RetroArch. And similarly, if we had RetroArch available, I wouldn't need to write my own, or either a shim, or create a database entry for this controller, or whatever I find is required, because I just don't know at this point, in order to get this controller to work in Ludo. If I was to use RetroArch, I wouldn't have to bother myself with any of that, because RetroArch would just work. So one of the things I also want to look at is, well, could I bundle RetroArch in a way, pre-configured in a way, that gives us a Ludo-like experience? Because I need to weigh up, do I want to get into developing a bunch of drivers for very niche devices, or would I be better off using something that already works with them? So that's something I want to evaluate as well. So maybe I should start there, because what if I kind of like how I can configure? And the other thing is, you know, I talked about having to modify Ludo so that the display resolution was more suitable for these small screens. I'm certain that that's not a requirement in RetroArch either, because they have a way to control the way the UI is presented in different form factors. So I may have a look at all of that too. I think I'll start with that actually. I think maybe we'll revisit RetroArch, because if anyone was here way back at the very beginning, when we first started Retro Home, it was RetroArch. It was a pre-configured RetroArch that I was using, and then we switched to Ludo. So I think we'll go back and take another look at RetroArch as an option. It kind of dilutes the interest in Retro Home, because it's just like any other project at that point. because they're all using RetroArch. Some straight up and some with Emulation Station. Right then, let's do this thing. Let's turn this off. So, oops, that's the wrong thing entirely. So we're going to try this again. We've built a new image. Let's see. Take your votes. Percentage likelihoodness that this is going to work. So 100% for complete win, 0% for complete fail, anywhere in between for where you think we're going to land in terms of actually having something that works. Bearing in mind I don't really know what the problem is, and I've kind of taken a wild guess. So we've just rebuilt the DeskPi desktop. Here it is from just a few moments ago. There we go. Right. I'm feeling like there's a 40% chance this is going to work. That's about how confident I am in my prediction as to how close this is to being a functioning thing. Yes. I think it's the frame buffer thing. And if it does turn out to be that, that's quite easy to control on a device-by-device basis. And at the moment, there's only one device that needs it, so it's even easier to manage. Right then, let's try this out. Let's cross your fingers and toes now. Let's see if this is going to work. And irrespective of whether this works, everything is going to need to be rebuilt. So I think I'll have to have a computer whirring for a couple of hours somewhere. Right then, let's turn it on. Let's see what happens. It is powered on, and there's the bootloader, so that's fine. Please work, please work, please work, please work. I'll just be happy if I'm able to connect to the thing over the network, to be honest with you. So when we see, because the capture card this, man, it's flunked out. I don't get it. Something else is wrong. Something else is wrong. Nope. We are out of luck here. Well, nothing. Huh. What's curious is I built an image that booted and ran on this. That's all the same build process, but just for this device. I'll tell you what, no, there's no point in trying the generic Raspberry Pi image. Well, I got nothing. I don't know why that's not working. Back to the drawing board. No release today, though.
Thank you for the follow, TechMaxis.
Hey, TechMaxis. Welcome to the stream. Thanks very much for the follow. So, I don't know why that's busted. We're going to have to go back to basics on this and debug it, and I'm out of time to do that now. So, no release today. There will be a release when it's not broken. And I'm hopeful, he says. I'm still quietly optimistic that release.
Thank you for the follow, Abbott M94.
Thanks, Abbott M, for the follow. I am confident that all of these Retro Flag set-top cases will be supported in what I release next.
Thank you for the follow, Sentipoo.
Hey, Sentipoo, thanks very much for the follow. So I'm confident that we can get those working. I know for a fact there's work to be done on the handheld devices. I explained that earlier. But I am bewildered. I am bewildered that a build system that was working and has worked for one of these devices this morning, it didn't work for this one either, did it? So I thought this was a one-off when this one didn't work, but this is not working in the same way that the Desk Pi is not working, and the Desk Pi is basically just a Raspberry Pi. Let's try one other. No, that shouldn't happen. Let's try one thing very quickly. I say try one thing. Oh, I say try one thing. Let's go here. Builds. It's ARMHF. It's Retro Home, Desk Pi, Desktop, and 6 boot config. No, this is fine. Okay, so the issue I thought I might observe is not there, so it's not the config.txt stuff. What have I broken? Answers on a postcard, please. So King Egypt says, any good Steam Deck game recommendations for the weekend then? So those of you with Steam Decks or Steam on Linux in general, any good game recommendations?
Thank you for the follow, Poster Case.
Hey, Poster Case, how you doing? So let's have a little think. It's not this FB Dev thing. And we also don't think it was the connection manager changes, because we've reverted that too. And yet, totally broken images. And the only one that worked is the one without KMS. So it's something to do with KMS perhaps that I've broken, which is why I thought it was the frame buffer driver. I don't want to disconnect everything to try out other stuff live on stream, because that was kind of catastrophic the other day when we tripped the power and lost all of the power here. So I'm keen to avoid making that mistake again. Nothing has changed here recently. This is all fine because we're not using System D, we're using Conman. Didn't change anything here, no. And we definitely rebuilt that without the frame buffer. Is there anything else we've added? We've added the VDPAU drivers, but I did that some time ago, and that should not have any impact on anything. I tell you what we could do. I know, so we're using the desktop version there, which uses the display manager. Let's put the not desktop version on and see if that works. Because there's a distinction between the two. The version with the embedded desktop uses the LightDM display manager to bring up the display server, whereas the version without the desktop embedded uses my own System D units to bring up the display server. So let's try the original build without any of the what we thought might be fixes included. Let's just use this Desk Pi image that was made at about 9 this morning. and see if this behaves any differently. Because then at least it focuses the attention as to where the issue might be. Because I don't think I've been... Mind you, that still doesn't follow, because this handheld unit would have been using a non-desktop version, but we'll give it a try. It gives us another bit of information. Hey Cassie Dev, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm good. Just trying to figure out what I've broken in Retro Home. I was expecting glorious success and it's been an unmitigated disaster. So I was hoping to put out some new releases, actual images that people could download, and I've broken things horribly. So I'm just trying to collect a little bit of information to inform what I've broken. So this is the last test that I'm going to try before I go and stop into a cup of coffee or something. Right then. So here we go. We are putting that one in. This is Retro Home without any desktop stuff. Turn it on and look at the capture output. Let's see what happens this time. Yeah. In episode, thank you, Cassie Dev. I am sure it will get fixed. It's just frustrating when you think that you've got something working and then you find out that you've broken it horribly. So yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed. I thought I was on the verge of greatness, but no. And this is doing the same thing. I wonder if there's been a kernel update and that's broken stuff. Let's go and check that idea. So this one doesn't work either. And let's see, let's just try and see if the network target came up on this one. I suspect it probably didn't, but let's find out. Nope, nothing there. Well, interesting. So let's check one other thing very quickly. Let's think. It's going to be... is it that? Is that the package that we're after? There we go. So we're looking at Jammy Jellyfish. And no, there has not been a update recently enough that it should be affecting me. So the current version is in proposed, so that isn't the version that we're using. This version hasn't changed for a month, so it's not a new kernel version. Out of interest, whilst I'm here, what's this new kernel for? So update to current Raspberry Pi patches. That's pretty cool. Okay. Okay, there's a bunch of stuff in here I'll be interested in. Oh, look at all of this. Wow, we want all of that. Okay, so there's a bunch of new stuff coming. Maybe I should enable the proposed Pocket in a build and test out the latest kernel as well. That could be interesting to do. Wow, look at all that Raspberry Pi stuff. Wow, it's loads. Okay, and then everything beneath here is just everything in the kernel that got fixed generally. All of the stuff up here is all of the Raspberry Pi specific stuff. Okay, so it's not the kernel. I can't blame anyone other than myself. I have broken it, and I don't know how, but I have absolutely, positively broken it, as this screen tells us, because right now we should be looking at something pretty, and that is not it. So, bother. I think I need to go away, sit in a warm, safe place and have a think about what I've done, because I've broken it and I don't know how. So if anyone cares to take a look at the source code and identify what they think might be the problem, you can find the project here. I'll just stick that in the chat now. So it's github.com/wimpysworld/retrohome. If you think you can see what I've busted in the recent commits, then head over to our Discord, which is here. And we have a channel for Retrohome. If you think you found the answer, by all means, give me a leg up and post your suggestions in our Discord in the Retrohome channel, and let me know what you think I've broken, because I had some immediate off the top of the head ideas and it wasn't those. So it's missing Vim. Oh, Yannick, you big troll. Yeah, it is missing Vim, and deliberately so, and in fact I can categorically reveal that is not the problem. King Egypt, very good. So thank you all for coming, everyone. I hope that you all have a fabulous weekend. Let's see who is streaming interesting stuff where we could go. Here we go. Oh, they're not streaming yet. That's a shame. They're good. That we've been there recently. Let's look for something new.
Thank you for the follow, madmax____made.
Hello, Mad Max. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for coming. Okay, that looks interesting. Oh, I've not been there for a while. Okay, there are a few. Oh, here we go. I've found someone. Let's go there. Right, I found someone doing interesting things that we've never been to before. Are they streaming in English? I think so. No, could be Russian. Oh, damn it. Okay. There we go. Not that I have a problem with that. It's just I don't like raiding people or doing stuff in another language because it throws them off. So,
Thank you for the follow, Snorky13FR.
Hey, Snorky. Thanks very much for the follow. Okay. Let's see. Where can we'll find someone interesting. I think it's a shame they're not on yet. She's really good. Okay, we'll go to a favorite of mine. So we are off raiding. Oh my goodness, we're not going to raid the Conman Wait Network Online Service Unit. That won't do it. Let's try that copy paste again. There we go. Right, we're off to visit a good friend and a game developer working on indie games. So thank you all for coming. Yeah, it was Chris Nova. He's on in 6 minutes, you say. We could wait 6 minutes for Chris, couldn't we? We could wait. Let's see if Chris is gonna be online. I've just cancelled the raid. Let's see if Chris is gonna be online in 6 minutes. I tell you what, we'll use the 6 minutes to actually go and figure out what I broke, shall we? That's probably a good idea. Yeah, we'll do that. It'll be good if we can go raiding over there as she starts her stream. That would be a nice thing to do. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the things that I think might be the issue and see if we can overcome them. What else could I test to prove that this is a problem? I think we're going to look through the recent commit history, and we want stuff that's generic. So it could have been this. It could have been this. Command line dot text refactor. What did I change here? Oh, it's the logo thing. That's not it. Hey, Phil. the wonderful Git Kraken. Go and get your copy now. So it could be this. It's unlikely to be this, but it's easy to test. So we could test that very, very quickly. So let's turn Pi off and try that. We'll plug that into the card reader. we'll have a look at what this changes. This is where I added conditionals for different models of Raspberry Pi, I think. Yeah, here we go. So we will go and not make that change. We'll edit the config on the card directly. Here it is, and we'll see if we can fix this. So the change we'll make is instead of doing all of this conditional stuff, hang on a minute, this config.txt doesn't even have those changes in it. Oh, is it this? It's this that I added. This, there we go. Now I've got good feels for this. What do we reckon? It could be that. It could be that. It's a different thing I was looking at there, but it could be that. So let's close this down. Let's eject this card. Let's jam it in the Raspberry Pi and see if that comes up. That was me trying to overcome the weird capture card quirks that I have with. In fact, it's not capture card related anymore. I know what the problem is. It's to do with how Ludo changes resolution. Okay, what do we think? It's dirty hack time. You are dead right, Yannick. It is that time of the day. It's time to roll out our best and proper dirty hacks. That's exactly what's going on right now. So let's see what happens. We should get the no signal as it flips between one output to the other. No, that's still not it. That's not it. It wasn't that. Damn. Yep. Oh, no, that's the wrong message. Yannick points out that I do say this quite often. Let's jam in the Pi and see what it does. Well, you know, at least it didn't turn all the power off this time. You know what it might be? I noticed yesterday when I was working, this could be a red herring. I noticed yesterday when I was working on this Raspberry Pi stuff that even though I've got the official Raspberry Pi power supply plugged into this, I was getting the low voltage warning. And the project I was working on yesterday didn't have any graphical output at all. It was all console based. I wonder if it's low voltage and it can't bring up the display. I wonder if that's the problem. How do I test that? I test that by plugging in a different device. We could plug in a Raspberry Pi 3 and try that. So needs to be one that's got an accessible Ethernet port though, so that one's not too bad. In fact, that one's better. Okay, right, let's try this. This is the last ditch effort. This is the last chance saloon now to try and get something to work. So we'll prop that card in. We will go here. We will get our retro flag image. We will choose that. I hope that's on the screen. I'm assuming it is. Use a custom image. Retro flag. There it is. Is this on the right screen? Yeah. I didn't take the whole grid out this time. Yeah. Well, I haven't tried unplugging and plugging it in yet, so we'll just write the image out. If I do take the power out and the stream goes down, it isn't coming back today. It will be the end. Also, pro tip, I have always my recordings of my streams always record to MKV, because even in the most dire of circumstances, you can like recover your videos from MKVs. If you record directly to MP4s and the power goes out like that, or OBS crashes, you're done. Game over. So I was able to at least recover both those bits of the MKV recording and, you know, publish something to YouTube. I am led to believe that that is very tricky if you record directly to MP4. So that is done there. We will unplug this card. We will stick it in this Raspberry Pi. No, which one are we going to use? This thing. Because it's got a nice accessible port on the front. So, hang on a minute. Overhead, there we go. So we're using the original NES Pi Plus, so this is a relatively small one. We will unplug the Ethernet, like this, plop that around the front here, and then we'll have to change the cable on the capture device. So that's falling down the back, so let's have you out. And that's unplugging the power. So that's the desk Pi. Let's change
Thank you for the follow, Finsuit.
Hey Finsuit, thanks very much for the follow. Not my best work today. I mean, it's been fun chatting and what have you, but the success level is actually at hard zero right now. I'm desperately looking for one glimmer of faint success before we end here. So let's plug this cable in, because this one is a Pi 3. What have I pulled out there? I pulled out the wrong cable. That's a mini. That one. There we go. So I have these slim HDMI cables. Are really nice. You can find them on Amazon. They're coming every length imaginable, but they're nice, high quality but thin, flexible cables. I love them. Use them for everything. Don't like those big fat immovable cables. So we'll keep this nice and close. Here it is. And this has a different power option. So this is the micro. And we'll plug that in. And there we go. Should be powering up. Let's see if this one works. I honestly, this one's gone off. Okay, this is this weird power situation. There we go. Okay, let's see how we go. So at least we didn't take all the power out, Yannick, so that's progress. But I do need to do some research on Raspberry Pi power supplies, because I don't understand. Hang on, we saw a flicker then. This one works. Huh. I'm not sure it's a victory, because I don't know why this works and the other one doesn't. I think it might be power though. I'm going to assume it's power. That is my best guess. That actually this was working all along. It was just a low power condition that meant the display wasn't being driven. So I will have to prove that, but also this isn't working because it hasn't got beyond. Oh, there we go. There it is working. I'm forgetting the fact this is a Raspberry Pi 3, so therefore slower. Takes longer to start up. But yes, Yannick, I shall have to have a moment of deep thought and contemplation to figure out what the heck is going on with that. Let's just see if the thing comes up. So this, I think, must be low power, because there was no network either, right? No network, no display. Low power field. So I'm chasing ghosts again. This keeps happening. I keep chasing down problems with the hardware rather than my stuff. So I'm going to need to go and put back the frame buffer stuff and now actually prove that that isn't the problem. The answer's 42. I wish it was that simple. Man, that's frustrating. So I'm going to need to test this. So there we go. It's blooming working just fine. Look at that. Okay, so that is, in of itself, that's good. So let's have a little think. What we're going to do now, we are going to make sure it's on the network. And our terminal is here. So run net discover. There it is. Oh no, that's not it. That's the building's access point. It's not on the network. I've broken my network. Oh, God. Okay, so this is external factors fighting against me. I've managed to break my own network. This ubiquity thing that you can see is not my network. That is the building's infrastructure. I'm looking for something on the 192.168.3 network, which is clearly not showing up. So I've broken something with my networking, but I do have that subnet here. He says, no, I don't. I don't have. How the heck? Okay. I'm not going to get into that now. I have broken my network, which is part of this problem. And I'm not going to try and debug that live whilst I'm dependent on the network that is working, being functional. So, I have a long list of things to go away and think about, but I've busted some stuff. What have I done indeed, Yannick? What have I done? I will... I've broken many things all at the same time. I try very hard not to do that these days. I've learned that lesson over the years, but okay. Yeah, hand in my developer's license, hand in my network administrator's license. I mean, I didn't even notice that I had no network. It could have been that I could probably debug this desk Pi all along if I'd have known the network wasn't there. Right, enough. Our friend doesn't appear to be streaming. Oh no, there's 37 people. She's not streaming, but there's 37 people watching the pre-stream. I'm not going to wait around longer. We will I'll tell you what, let's do the right thing. Let's do the right thing. We know we want to be there, so let's go and do this. Oh no, she's up and running. She is up and running. That Twitch preview thing is well jank. There we go. Let's do this then. So thank you all for coming. I hope you all have a fabulous weekend. I will put some of my weekend time into fixing the problems that I have apparently created for myself. So let's go and raid. We're going to raid Chris Nova. She's working on some peer-to-peer networking stuff. Thank you all for coming. See you Monday. Have a fab weekend. Bye for now.